Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I thought I'd do a quick update on how I'm getting on with the self-authoring program. So I actually haven't used the program since the last video, and I wanted to kind of talk about why. And I think it's a lot to do with a little bit of sort of disillusionment with regards to Jordan Peterson. And I think it sort of comes from a few places. I think it comes from, number one, this idea of self-authoring and realizing and recognizing that I was seeking permission to do that, to carry out my self-authoring. And that's a position of power that I think Jordan Peterson is in. As a, native Canadian white man who's got an education up to PhD level and then has a job at a university, he's in a position of power and within a structure of power, because not everybody has access to education, not everybody is living in their native land, not everybody is, has the stability of being, in one place. I can vouch for that. Like, there's and to his credit, he does mention once in the beginning of his book, 12 Rules for Life, forced migration, but it doesn't seem to be something that he's openly he hasn't opened that can of worms publicly, even though I think he's thought about it, otherwise he wouldn't have included it in his book. And actually, like, it's something that surprised me when I read his book, and I don't have his book with me because I lent it to someone a while ago and haven't read, like, they probably haven't read it, and they haven't given it back. So this is actually just from, memory, because it struck me that he'd mentioned it. Because my family we're a family of forced migrants. So, it seems to me like Jordan Peterson is having this sort of, like, he's trying to tread this line, which is interesting because let's go on to, so there's sort of like the idea of forced migration, and then his interview with Ayaan Hirsi Ali, who is an ex-Muslim, and that's the person he chose, that's the woman that he chose to represent or to talk about, Islam. And I find that, as a Muslim woman, I find that quite offensive, because there's always been this sort of go-to, let's go to an ex-Muslim woman, let's go to the most critical person of Islam, let's go to the person who's made a career out of being critical of Islam, who makes money out of being critical of Islam, rather than, speaking to a Muslim woman who's experienced extreme abuse for being a Muslim in the West. So that, to me, was a bit of a red flag, let's say. Largely because, it's serious. It's something that is embedded, and it's horrifyingly difficult to live with. Being demonized, as I have been, and losing as much as I've lost my education, job prospects, jobs. I lost my degree. I was bullied out of university for speaking as a Muslim woman. So I find this sort of not really recognizing how the Muslim narrative, or like our voices, have been systemically, deliberately pushed out of the conversation and replaced by people who are just making money out of peddling hate. I call it hate peddling, then backpedaling, because they always do a bit of backpedaling so people don't really pick up on what's really going on until they do, and that's why I'm talking about it. So, Ayaan Hirsi Ali is, she's works with or affiliated with people like Sam Harris and Majid Nawaz, and Majid Nawaz will claim to be like a reformist or whatever, but at the end of the day, like, he was part of a terrorist violent extremist Islamic group at the beginning. So this is what I call hate peddling. And then you have backpedaling, but then the backpedaling was somehow financed by our conservative government to the tune of £1 million of funding. There is a lot of like systemic shit going on, and I think that Jordan Peterson not really recognizing, and also in his sort of narrative or way of speaking, to sort of cut the Muslim narrative out of all of this, like even when we're talking about mythology, is quite disappointing actually, because he's in a position to do that. I'm not, because I don't have access to the resources. I don't have access to the because I was forced out of my degree for speaking about these things very, very quickly, after I started my degree. So it's it's really going beyond what's comfortable and what's palatable and what's sellable, and what it's going beyond that. Maybe it's going to make me unpopular. I don't care, like, as long as I'm questioning power and privilege and its authority and our seeming need for that validation from that power. I'm constantly questioning that, and to my benefit actually, because obviously it's difficult, like, trust me, but you lose a lot. I've lost everything. That's why I can go about my day talking about doing other things openly, because I've lost my father, I lost my family, I've lost all my extended family. For 10 years I lost my brother. For 5-6 years I was not in touch with my family. I do have my mom, luckily, but even in terms of my relationship with my mom, we don't have a mutual language that we can communicate effectively with. So like, I've lost it. I've seen the loss of everything precious, and that's just the beginning of the list of things that I've lost in this pursuit of like challenging authority, rather than being subservient to human authority, whatever form that might take. So I'm self-employed. I'm setting up my own schools actually. So I'll give you a little bit about like what I'm up to right now. So I'm setting up the School of Colonial Studies. I'm setting up Creative Critical English, which is my school for teaching English. I've started an organization called Women in Art, which challenges and tackles and seeks to really, we can never fully get rid of it, but like abuse of women or anyone within the art world. So, and it covers the entire not just like the visual arts, but the performing arts, the literary arts, and the culinary arts. So it's sort of like trying to be as broad and all-inclusive, and push people to be respectful of each other, regardless of power, and to say, just because you're in a position of power doesn't mean that you can abuse it. So I have the three main projects that I'm doing at the moment. This year is the 50th anniversary of Bangladesh's birthday, basically. And so I'm doing a photography project with my mum, because she lived through that war while she was pregnant with my brother. And I think that the constant dehumanization of Bengalis is something that really needs to be spoken about, because it's very much in touch with what's happening with the Rohingya in Burma, because they're considered ethnically Bengali and therefore legible, I guess, for genocide. And so going through a very, I don't want to say interesting because it's not really the right word. We're going through a very, very difficult political time at the moment. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of weird shit going on politically. And it's weird shit if you don't know if you haven't researched and you haven't looked into the history of let's say from the last 150 years, and recognize the patterns. I'm self-employed because it's not safe for me to work for other people. I worked in a school. I mentioned that in my last video, I think. I was harassed every single day by a white male colleague. And Jordan Peterson talks about this, you know, women wearing this and this and this and wearing red on their lips. And it's a very primitive explanation. It's a very base level, you know, it's literally talking about things in a very primitive, on a primitive plane. But beyond the primitive, women should be respected regardless of what they are wearing. And so there's the obvious scientific, evolutionary, biological explanation for why men harass women or whatever, you know, and focusing on women's signals and all of that stuff. But we're more advanced than that last time I checked. And so the next step to that would be to say, even though that's there, the civilized thing to do is not to harass women and not to expect them not to, you know, get angry when they don't respond to your advances, or feel entitled because a woman wore something on her lips or because she did her hair, you know. And that's literally how things are going about in the workplace, literally. And it's a norm in this society. And I'm talking about Italy, and I'm talking about here because I've worked since I was 16, and I'll say that every single job pretty much that I've been in, either I've been abused like financially, or, you know, I've been harassed or abused some other way. That's why I'm working for myself. And I get a lot of shit from people who say, oh, what's your job? And it's like, just because I'm not pandering to the fucking, you know, capitalist fucking bullshit, you know, way of doing things, or the Western way, or what people normally do, doesn't mean I'm not working. I mean, my idea of working is separate. It's what I want to do. It's what I want to work on. Maybe that's radical. Maybe that's weird. Maybe that's, you know, something that people envy. Fine. But it's also a product of sacrifice. Huge, immense sacrifice. I sacrificed my relationship, you know, being in contact with my family, my friends. I later on sacrificed my health. I sacrificed my degree. I sacrificed everything. That's why I say I don't have anything to lose from. That's why I feel very empowered right now, actually. So I think any sort of expert on religion, expert on psychology, expert on modern whatever's going on right now, if they're not willing to engage in a respectful way with Muslims, or with brown women, or with working class people, or with people who are even below the working class, let's talk about that, because there is a large group of people who are, you can call them human dust, you can call them the subaltern, you can call them the underclass, you can call them the indigent, you can, so many terms that academics feel that they have the right to, you know, place on us and analyze us and put us in books and in black and white and put us in a library. But what about our lived lives and our lived experiences? What are these people doing to improve that? You know, that's essentially my question. So when it comes to discussing current issues or like politics or psychology or whatever, history, mythology. I think it's very ignorant, willfully at a lot of the time, because people don't want to get into it. You know, they don't want the Muslims, you know, like we've been so badly the media has just ripped us to pieces and dehumanized us so of politicians for their gain, because it's useful to have an enemy, you know, an enemy, whatever. Yes, sure, like I'm so dangerous, you know, with my school and my, you know, teaching English, you know, obviously that's dangerous. Obviously that's dangerous. Creating your own educational institution, creating your own spaces, thinking for yourself, doing for yourself, questioning, you know, authority. Yes, I understand, but I'm not gonna stop. So yeah, I think that there's a big question mark over why people are so exclusive to Muslim, like they just like to exclude us or not consider us part of history or part of the present narrative, and how comfortable people are with that. And when you try to challenge it, it's, you know, it's like talking to someone who's brainwashed. That's very disappointing, because I consider that, you know, we live in a fairly educated world where we have access to a lot of information. So, but then you realize that though the media has really, like, you know, really gone into a lot of people's minds subliminally, and it's a norm. And I'm saying this as someone who's lost so much, and I'm talking about like friends and partners, you know, because of this, because of this normalization of denying and dehumanizing me. And when I say that it's not okay, they're like, whoa, 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 you're angry and this and that and this and that. And it's like, no, but you're behaving like I'm constantly being undermined in terms of my intellect. And because it's talking about something that isn't normally spoken about, it's sort of seen as wrong, rather than new, or not even new, or rather that it's part of the story. And I find that so shocking. I find that really shocking. And I got a book called Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race, because of some of the experiences that I've had recently. And it's so sad, because this lady, she writes the preface, and for me the preface was enough. And you know, if anyone wants to look at the book, it's the preface. I'll probably even like just, she narrates the audio book, so I don't know how copyright works, but I'd really like for you guys to have access to that. Just the preface, because even though she says why I'm no longer talking to white people about race, and she's written the book, she goes on and she does all this research, and she's done it, and she's outlined, and I haven't finished the book, she's outlined the history of racism in the UK, which the UK is not willing to face or deal with or admit to, or any of those things. It's sort of always something that happens over there, and it's easy to say that America's racist. We're not. No. That is not the case. It's terrible here. I can give you so many examples. Like the other day, I came across my grades from school, and I was given an A for my exam, but a U, which means ungraded, for my coursework, and so I didn't get the grade that I was looking for to get to university. This was the grade that I was given by a racist teacher, and I had to suck that up and privately enter some exams on my own expense. Bear in mind, I'm not doing any of this stuff like from my parents' money. I left home when I was 19, and before that, like, we didn't have money. Like, we just had like what the government would hand to us. So you know, I went through the education system. I got screwed over. I did things privately. I got to an I got into an elite institution called SOAS, and that was a disaster, because the way the education system is set up is that you're not supposed to get to that that height, you know. So that's why I'm going back to, there's a reason why I'm talking about this, is because what I want to say is that we do not need permission from anyone to tell our story, to write down our story, to write down our past, to take to write about our future and how we see our future. We don't need permission, and I needed that for so long, and I started writing my autobiography in 2013, and I kept stopping, and the self-authoring program gave me the structure, but I really think that that structure should be free. Like, I think it should be available, freely available. So that's my personal opinion, and I know that I've spoken about a lot of things in this video, but you know, they're all things that I think are important. I think so, like, as a summary, I think that systematically excluding the voice of Muslims and Muslim women, and then going and interviewing you know, an ex-Muslim as, you know, a sort of like remedy for that is questionable. When there are plenty of Muslim women whose voices are just denied systematically, women who want to engage, women who want to be involved, women who want to you know, build their lives with integrity. Instead, he's, you know, speaking to, Jordan Peterson is speaking to someone who's from a very privileged background. You know, let's just start with that, you know, part of the establishment. I mean, like, where do we go from there if they're the only people who get to have a voice? You know, so there's that. And then there's the talk about sexism, which I think is kind of incomplete. It can only be complete when you involve and you include the woman's voice. And, you know, you don't have an authority just because you've studied this and that, you know. There's more. There's always more. And so that's the other thing. And yeah, so I think they're the 2 points. And then the third one is that you don't need permission, you don't need validation. That's the third one. I've had a very difficult year. I'm not gonna lie. It's been tough. Like, but it's also been incredibly beautiful. Like, I'm in London where I can spend time with my family. I have a beautiful nephew and I get to watch him grow up. I get to have conversations with him in person. I get to teach him new things. I get to learn new things from him. I get to pick him up from school. You know, I'm deeply grateful for those things, and they're very simple things, and they're not things to be taken for granted. I didn't have access to those things always, you know. I didn't always have a relationship with my sister. I didn't always have a relationship with my mom. I didn't always have a relationship with my brother. You know, those are things that I've very much fought for, not just worked for, but fought tooth and nail without compromise for. And I've got it. For the first time last week, I could call my brother and my sister, my 2 sisters. I've got 2 brothers who I don't really talk about because we don't have a very good relationship at all. So yeah, you know, having my 3 siblings that for the first time in my life, and I'm 31 now, I could call and cry. Because I was in such a bad place, because of some of the things that I've mentioned, because of these types of discrimination and dehumanization, and this idea that we don't really know about our own experiences. Other people do, and other people can speak for us, and other people have that authority because they've, you know, they've read books about it, and while we've lived through it, but we don't have, no, they know better because they have a degree, you know. That's the thing that I'm challenging, and I just can't, like, you know, I try to advance myself because that's, you know, what I'm doing, and then I often end up with a circle of people who have been embedded and, like, you know, got the rubber stamp from the educational institutions, and they don't get why we're coming from different places, because I was chucked out of that for voicing my opinions, which were too difficult for not only the students to deal with, for the teachers to deal with, and for the entire institution to deal with, because they're questions of abuse of power, and the dynamics of power, and how education is used as a tool for that. So, you know, it shouldn't be indoctrination. It should be a space for learning, for mutual learning. And that's not what education is right now. It's probably has never been. Maybe in some parts of the world it's good. And it doesn't carry that propaganda with it. But here, it's bad. And America, it's probably this just as bad or worse, because yeah, like, let's not even go there. You know, so that's pretty much everything. Maybe it's taken a bit of an unexpected turn from what you guys are used to, but I can tell you that I've definitely found my own voice. I've definitely found my own comfort. It's not easy. I'm still very much alone. That's why I'm doing this video, because it's very hard to find people who are yeah, just kind to a new perspective, who aren't cruel, who aren't demeaning, who aren't disrespectful. And because it's easy to be disrespectful, because you can get away with it. Like, in this society, you can abuse entire groups of people and totally get away with it, because it's the media encourages it, politicians encourage it, you know, educational institutions systemically encourage it, and, you know, so it's tough. It's incredibly tough, this point in my life, but I'm grateful. I have a small desk, and I'm working away here. I live in a shared flat, and I have my room, and that's been the case for a while. Like, in Italy, I had a little apartment, and that was, like, really lucky that I got to have an apartment of my own that was, like, safe, and affordable, but I was also living in an environment which was not very kind to me. So, as I mentioned before, like, I was really badly treated at work, and also, like, what's the word, like, what they called, like, employee rights are not very good in Italy, or in most places they're not very good, to be honest. But, like, yeah, I got pretty much screwed over by my company. Not to say that I didn't love teaching, because I do. So it's sad that you can't, like, teachers can't find, like, the space to, like, people who really want to teach, you have a passion for it, kind of, like, can't find, like, well, like me, I don't know if it's everyone, but you know, sort of fulfillment within the schools. Yeah, so 3 things that I wanted to talk about, and I've spoken about. I've spoken a little bit about my family. Generally, I think because it's winter, I'm not really doing much exercise, which is not good. So I need to start going running again, which would help with my cardio. I did a blood test at home the other day, because I was worried about deficiencies and stuff. Turns out I need to cut down on sugar, and I was almost completely deficient in vitamin D. So guys, I really recommend taking care of your health and checking at those things, and asking your doctor to specifically check for things like deficiencies or your thyroid, or because I don't think I've ever been told about my blood sugar. So this test was really important because I have a history of diabetes in like both sides of my family, and it's a common thing for Bangladeshis to have. So that's another thing that I would really suggest, that people take care of their health, especially now. It's, we're living in a pandemic. I've started to grow some plants. I'm taking cuttings and I want to grow them from sort of like that point in their lives, because it takes patience. And I talk to my cutting every day and I'm like, are you gonna grow some roots sometime soon? um, and yeah, I have a hamster called Yellow. And she keeps me busy sometimes, like quite preoccupied, sort of like cleaning her cage, or like just hanging out with her, or making sure she doesn't like eat things that she's not supposed to eat. She's very cute. I wanted to call her Red after Malcolm X, but the first time I told someone that I've got a hamster called Red, they said Fred, and I was like, no, I said Red. So because to avoid that kind of like explaining everything, I decided to call her Yellow. um and yeah, like I think it's interesting to talk about Malcolm X because he's sort of like a hidden hero in a sense, and it's hard to talk about because it's something that cuts very deep in terms of like revolutionary Muslims, and how much strength one can draw from that. So that's my personal little bit about what that means to me. So I think I've given you guys like quite a lot to chew on. I mean, I don't know when I'm gonna do the continue doing the self-authoring, but writing about my past is extremely difficult, and I need to find the time and the space for it. Like, I've joined a writing club where we're writing short stories and we're sharing them. So like among all the projects like that I'm already doing, like I probably haven't even mentioned some, but yeah, I'll just show you like something. This is a postcard that I got in Rome, because I went to Rome last year, and I'd been to Rome already, but I went this time for a bit longer and with a bit of a plan to like see lots of things and to go to the Vatican and to explore lots of different things. And so I went to the Vatican. I sat outside the Colosseum reading Jung. I met some random Italians and had nice conversations and dinners, and so it's been a good year, and it's been a tough year. Like, I'm sort of giving you again like a really brief overview, but I do think that like especially now when there's so much like division, I don't think that there's any excuse for like leaving people out, or to constrain or confine the conversation, and to only allow like powerful establishment and people who have this sort of like, they're very aggressive in some ways, but like to give the same type of people who just thrive off division a voice. I'm someone who's constantly trying to find bridges, and I think that's probably why I've shown you this, because yeah, like it's meaningful. you know, like I think it speaks for itself. I think everyone knows that it's the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel in the Vatican. And I did get really shocked by the amount of poverty outside the Vatican. You know, it's absolutely shameful to see homeless people, and clearly people who are, and they might blame the homeless people like a lot of people do, but actually you know, people are suffering from a lot of mental health problems, and you know, a lot of people are looking for a sense of belonging, and that's not their fault if they're feeling alone, or that they, you know, the most comfortable place that they can find is a sleeping bag on the street. And there's a lot of like false anti poor people like sort of sentiment and ideas, or they choose it and this and that, and they're criminals and all of this sort of thing. And it's just like, well, you know, if this is, I don't even think that that's necessarily the case. And I think that yeah, there's a lot of that sort of idea as an excuse for poverty, the existence of poverty, and then the extreme you know, concentration of wealth by institutions and those who back those institutions ideologically or in whatever manner, or in their work or whatever. Or yeah, so that's a story for another day. Italy. um so yeah, I'm gonna wrap things up, and I really want people to think about caring more, not like in this sort of like mad way, but like more like let's do things together, not separately, and not in a way where there's an assumption that someone or a group has the answers, you know, or that we need to take advice and authority from somewhere up there. These people in these institutions are not God, okay? That's the other thing. It might be presented like that, and it might be put up there like that, but at the end of the day, like, people, we are one. And you know, God is different things to different people, but last time I checked, it's not a person. Or like you know, like, I think people understand what I'm saying by, you know, like idolization or like deification of people in authority, and that's really dangerous. I'm not just talking about within education, but I mean like politically, I mean in lots of different ways. Even domestically, you know, like, you know, some abusers, they want to be seen in that position, in that light, as though they are the sole authority. So it's questioning these things, these mechanisms, why we're living in such a state of abuse. And I'm very much trying to avoid it and keep myself safe. So I hope you do too. I'm gonna wrap it up, and please do ask me any questions about what I've mentioned. I think I've been clear enough. If there are any questions that can be answered by doing your own research, please do your own research, and then get back to me about things. But I've really yeah. So yeah, thanks for listening, and I'll update you guys hopefully soon.